Okay, so I did do a presentation for this, just a mere 73 slides to go through, but I'm probably not going to do the presentation. We're just going to have a conversation and debate around, basically following on from what we've talked about today. So if I can ask the panel members to come up and grab a seat. Thank you very much. I feel like there should be music as you come up. Okay, great. So, kind of the final topic of the day, and it'll come on to the closing out statements, and then so I want to try and avoid stealing anybody's thunder in the very final end. But I wanted to try and capture some of the points that have come out through today and reiterate those points and kind of get those key takeaways. So the topic is around inclusivity, not exclusivity. And Jason touched on it today on the earlier panel he was on. And inadvertently, corporations can create exclusivity within this supplier diversity program. So with all the best intentions, we're going to create the supplier diversity program. You can actually generate exclusivity. So if, for example, if you've got no knowledge about supplier diversity, everybody goes to everybody's favorite Google, supplier diversity program, how to set up, YouTube video comes up normally. And you can take a look at what the things you need to put in place, what policies exist out there. And then people can go and choose a single advocacy group, just because they've got a KPI of reaching X amount of number of people or generating the right spend with diverse backgrounds. And if you select a single diversity group, you're creating exclusivity, aren't you? Because you're excluding the other diverse backgrounds from that process then. The other thing to think about is your approved supplier process and how you onboard people and how as small businesses, and the last panel talked about 99% of 5 million businesses in the UK are 0 to 50. You know, the majority of those are under 9 micro entities. So if you've got a supplier onboarding program that needs lots of complicated processes, lots of policies, anti-bribery and corruption, you know, modern day slavery for businesses run by an individual, they would never normally have those processes and policies in place. So they need to take the time and go away and look for those then. So try and avoid that exclusivity being created. So we put together this amazing panel today, and the same as everybody else has done, we'll start at the end with Sunita, and they can give a quick introduction to themselves if they could.
Okay, thank you. I think I started the day with an introduction. But yes, Sunita Hirani, co-founder of the Council for Supplier Diversity UK, and really here to add to Scott's opening there, just to reinforce why collaboration is just so important, why sharing things are so important. And I think the reason why it kind of is more of an emerging theme today is because even that small needle on the dial that we've moved in terms of progressing on supply diversity, the impact is enormous. I think if we just reflect on how much of the GSA day we had last year by comparison to the attention and traction that we've had today, I think that is a clear demonstration of that. But that wasn't an introduction to me. Anyway, I'll hand over to you, James.
Thanks, Nita. For those that don't know me, I'm James Lloyd. I'm Procurement Director in CBRE's UK Advisory Division. I am very, very grateful for such a great session today. In particular, I think the last panel discussion took it to another level with the interaction, and I think it really cuts to some of the really key things that we need to tackle. I think the reason we have the debate is, as you probably advised, Scott, that for us to progress in this space, we all come from different sort of baselines, and our progress it's never going to be at a point where we all have that same understanding, and there is always going to be an area of sort of disparity between our experiences and our views, and therefore we're always going to be, to some extent, battling to ensure that we're being fully inclusive because everyone's different perspectives and baselines, which is why these sessions are so good. So I really enjoyed the debate so far. More to come.
Hi everyone, Matt Dabrowski, founder and CEO of Outbrain, the UK's first LGBTQ Chamber of Commerce. I've probably talked a lot today, but the last thing I want to say is, we've modeled ourselves and partnered with the US and Canada to bring certification to the UK. It took 20 years 20 years ago, the US launched LGBTQ certification. 7 years later, Canada. 13 years later, the UK. And I just want to give you a perspective of how quickly we're going with diversity. And I'm worried because if we don't jump on this now, then how much longer are we going to wait until it actually trickles into other markets where, again, the discrimination is rampant, the governments don't care, and where we really have to fight for that equality for not only the suppliers, but your consumers, as well as the population as a whole.
I'm Kate Kavanagh. I'm the head of supply chain, sustainability and diversity, so sort of covering both of those areas within Fidelity International, which is in the financial services market. It's an asset management company. And I've been in the role for about a year, and I've enjoyed so far everything I've seen here today. I think it's very interesting to keep talking, so glad to be part of this panel. Thank you.
Hi, I'm Valeria Rodriguez Codina. I'm European Growth and Engagement Manager for We Connect International. I'm representing our regional director, Jerome Flint, who couldn't make it, but I'm very, very happy because I learned and saw the world of the corporates, because I work a lot on the side of the women-owned businesses and try to make the most in front of the corporates. So listening to all the corporates today has been very enlightening. And thank you for the association and the council. I think it's great what you're doing and putting us together here to open our minds and learn from each other. And of course, the last panel was kind of difficult, but I'm not the one to decide on that. But I think there's so many things we can do together as organizations, and I am put my time and my energy if needed. And thank you, Melanie, for my colleague here for coming today too. Thank you.
Great, thank you all. So we've got a mix of advocacy groups as well as corporates, and going to really talk about two kind of topics really. So the benefits of a broad range of diversity, and then some hints and tips so from the corporates for those looking to set up their own supply diversity schemes. But I want to just quickly zip back to this morning and Jay's inspirational talk first thing this morning about helping somebody and giving somebody opportunity. And I think I kind of need to offset or start out this conversation about being clear about diverse backgrounds and how none of them are looking for any preference at all from corporates. What they're looking for is opportunity. Exactly what Jay was talking about. They're looking for the chance, somebody to give them that little start and say, come and have access, have visibility to our tendering process, and then show us what your business can do. And that's all every diverse business wants, and why they're involved with different advocacy groups. They're not hoping for somebody to say, I feel sorry for you, I'll give you that tender, who's going to pay X amount over the top. They just want the opportunity, and it's great that Jay started off the day with that. So thank you very much, Jay, for setting me up so nicely for the everyday. So, benefits of a broad range of diversity within your program. So everybody in this room is interested in supply diversity. That's why we're all here today. Hopefully people haven't just walked past the office and wandered in because they heard it was free sandwiches and tea. So we all know about the benefits of diversity, things like cognitive diversity, shared different experiences, shared backgrounds, and how that can bring different abilities into problem solving, into decision making, into business in general. And that's what the advocacy group is pushing for each of those backgrounds to come and have those points. So why should you use a broad range? So there's different advocacy groups here. And we've all spoke today about the different numbers that we've got within our directories, within our membership. So having that broad range of involvement with multiple advocacy groups, it's a numbers game. So the more tenders you put out to more diverse businesses, the percentage likelihood is going to increase. So you've got a better opportunity of a successful tender winner coming from a diverse background, which if you've got a KPI, then it gives you the opportunity to associate that spend, that award, whichever way your KPI works, with a diverse background. There's some research out there, and the lady, I forgot her name earlier, got to shoot off for the flight, was talking a lot about the statistics and the Office of National Statistics. So there's data out there that says that corporates, as a whole, on average, will spend 58% of their revenue through their supply chain. So the impact you guys can make, all the corporates sat in the room here, when you're trying to put some of that spend, and we've got companies in this room that are, multi-billion-dollar revenue companies. So the potential impact at the far end you've got in terms of numbers, pounds, dollars, whatever currency you might work in, is huge. So you need to try and get more diverse businesses having that opportunity within that supply chain. 64% of millennials won't work for a company that doesn't have a good ESG or D&I policy. And I'm willing to bet that most people don't link supplier diversity, ESG, with employee retention. And that's a huge thing now in the world of employment for millennials who have a different outlook to the various other generations, Gen Z and so forth. But then having that ability and that desire to work for a company with a good ESG program. And investors. If anybody's business is looking for investors, then basically there's 33% of assets under management from 2016 to 2018, which equated to $30 trillion, were having a decision made based on those policies within ESG. So all of us here are talking about the S part of that, and Matt touched today about the E part that gets the lion's share of the limelight essentially. We want to shift that focus to the S part. So the panel brought them up today, and nobody wants to listen to me droning on all day about different statistics. So want to get some feedback from the panel in terms of their lived experience, how they are finding it as either a corporate or as an advocacy group. So I'll pitch the first question to James if I can. So what's the benefits, James, within your organisation, within CBRE, that you've seen with working with a broad range of diverse businesses?
I think we would split them into two areas, as many corporates would. We have our drivers of the programme are commercial benefits, and there's the social stuff as well. So if I zone in on the commercial stuff first, there are just a unique set of skills and outcomes that we tend to see with diverse suppliers and smaller enterprises. And so the examples that we have are, for example, when we look at our examples of digital innovation, we've got a brilliant, I think, our returning business from a few years ago, which had developed some IoT solutions for washroom services that gave us real-time data to help us really drive far more sustainable solutions for that particular client. We've got other examples which touch on our brief conversation earlier about disabled businesses. We've got a brilliant disabled-owned tech vendor that has helped us develop some property workplace auditing solutions, trying to help understand how we can actually create the right environment to have a sort of inclusive space for lots of our clients. And so there are two really tangible examples of where innovation has come through. I think another example, which is very apparent when you go through big dramatic shifts in market dynamics, is the ingenuity and the speed of the market movement on stuff such as lockdown happening. And we, as a real estate provider of services that needed quite a lot of hand sanitizer and PPE at the time, we had a lot of vendors that were suppliers in that space, and there are two that stand out in my mind that was not their core service. service or product, but the way they pivoted and provided us with the PPE and solutions to create a safe space for those that were still working through COVID in the NHS, in lots of frontline services that needed that level of security and protection, was noticeably quicker and more robust than many others that you would probably put in the non-diverse category, and that's the real differentiator. So I think those two very tangible commercial gains that spring to mind. I think other stuff that naturally sits in the social piece and to some extent links with the wider businesses, to your point on sort of employee engagement and the ability to bring people through and create a culture which embraces this. This is something in our business that our employees are driving in lots of cases. Our employee network groups keep us really, really honest on a lot of these topics. We have our clients driving it from the other end as well. And so I think there's lots of things that are happening in that space. Whether or not we're able to articulate clearly what the social outcomes and benefits are, probably not at this stage. I don't think there's lots of work we need to do on that. Coming back to data that we've spoken about earlier on, about the commercial stuff is really, really clear. And instinctively, the social stuff is too, but we don't quite, I think, have enough data in the pen to really drive that as effectively as I'd like at the moment.
Yeah, makes sense. And what about yourself then, Sunita, in terms of your organisation, Deutsche Bank? How have you found it to be working with different advocacy groups?
Yeah, so I think in terms of advocacy groups where I am now, I think just reflecting on what James has said already, I think it's more about engaging right across our colleague networks and taking learnings from that. But also in previous experiences as well, I would say, and echo what James said there, the response, the resilience, the innovative solutionizing, I think that was very much apparent throughout the pandemic. And I think that was right across industry, I think that was right across sectors, that supplier diversity really came out of its shell. And I think that's where really us founders of the Council for Supplier Diversity came about as well, in terms of recognising that in the hour of need, the most reliable and resilient suppliers were those that were diverse suppliers. And I think, you know, something I touched on yesterday as well, people don't really relate supplier diversity upon first impression to their ESG programs. But, you know, when we think about diverse suppliers, a lot of the time they are local providers. So the whole transportation, the whole transport to you, the whole connection, it does play into the whole sustainability element as well. So I would say that it goes beyond just the whole data side. I think it's the hearts and minds aspect as well.
Yeah, definitely.
Can I add something as well? For me, in my learning so far, I think we don't have too many diverse owned suppliers on our books yet. We're growing and building that. But the two things that I feel the strongest that come out to me are these. One is what you touched upon, which is about you know, clients and employees are interested in seeing your business reflecting what life is out there, and reflecting, being able to see back what they see, you know, in their normal lives. Haven't expressed that very well, but you all got it. So that's one thing, is just about being able to reflect life. And the other thing is that we're not a very big company. We're much bigger, obviously, than the small business, but we're not one of the really big corporates like Meta or, you know, Amazon or Oracle, or one of those really, really large ones. So when we go out and we look for suppliers, and we have to go with the likes of, say, Amazon for our cloud services or whatever else, we know we're never going to be their customer of choice. We're never going to be the buyer that they really want, because they have some other much bigger fish with much bigger contracts. But the small businesses and the diverse suppliers are much hungrier for it, and we know that we're more likely to be able to sit down with them and say, actually, we need this, what can you do for us? And that agility, that ability to pivot means that we're going to get a much better service, and it's not something that every salesperson pitching to you will all say, oh no, we're agile, we're innovative, and we're all of those things. Prove it. And the point is that small businesses, diverse businesses, they can prove it. You can see it. You know, Camilla, you're hungry for it. What you said about the 4-week turnaround made me think, I might put that into my sourcing team as a goal, a prize for anyone who can turn it around in 4 weeks, whatever the thing is, you know, to challenge some of those things. So that hunger and that passion comes through. So I think those are really big selling points for me.
Yeah, no, I think you're right, Kate. There's somebody researched it, graphed it out, you'd see a correlation of customer service with contract awarded time, and you'd see it dropping off. The longer a company has had a contract and just been automatically renewed, that level of customer service will naturally drop off. The mindset is, we're going to get the contract anyway, so we'll just do less for more money effectively.
Which is one of the key bits for procurement as well in corporates, is about how do you let a diverse supplier in and oust an incumbent when the incumbent doesn't have to do very much at all to stay and just wait for the money to come in. Whereas the diverse suppliers having to fight and jump through hoops left, right and centre. And so that's exactly, so we as corporates need to be tougher about our renewal processes and things like this to make them fight for it, whoever it is, and you know, get more RFPs out there and that kind of thing, get more in. So.
Yeah. And I think your point about business imitating life is really valid as well. And I just looked at Gillian, her name was earlier. So Gillian's statistic from the ONS of 99% being in that SME category of in terms of size. If corporates are dealing with other corporates, it's the 1% dealing with the 1%. That doesn't sit well with the public, you know, and it's just the perception of money being passed between money. So bringing in those diverse suppliers, bringing in the smaller organisation is a huge benefit. And the corporate should be shouting about it and, you know, telling the world this is what we're doing. We're not giving our money to the other 1% out there. We're giving it to the reality that is life out there, you know, and showcasing this is Joe Bloggs and his business. You know, this is him supporting his kids on the Sunday morning at football and going on holiday to wherever it is. Not another executive jetting off in a private jet somewhere, as lots of people have the perception of the 1% being. So,
Scott, one other point, just to pick on that point on RFPs, I think the other thing is that to know is that not everything needs to go through a big RFP-like process. So there's so many more targeted conversations that can happen if there's a will and a way and there's a desire to actually get a conversation flowing to pick up individual conversations where there's opportunities. So I think sometimes, picking up on some of the conversations earlier on, there's a far more simplistic way to approach it and just kind of take all that away and just focus on some specific opportunities, because not everything's going to be a massive, six-figure contract that we're trying to get.
yeah, and I think in terms of responsible sourcing, and you know, as corporates, you've got a duty of care to not drown small businesses. You know, and particularly that's what worries me when people say they've got a KPI against X amount of million or billion spend, because it got brought up this morning again. You know, 6 months, 9 months down the line of that working year, people start to panic and think, I've got X amount of £1 million to spend, and we've got to put it through diverse suppliers. And then you'll drown the business because you just award a contract to hit that KPI, and that business isn't able to fund the materials, isn't able to fund the staff, and you'll cause more damage than good. So those smaller contracts that Jim spoke about, impact, and I'm going to come on to impact later on, it's much more impactful to give a small business a little slice of pie, but you've got that pie coming every single month. And Paul and I were talking about this today, earlier, and having that security that allows them to scale over time in a responsible manner, and collaboration that we spoke about today, the corporate effectively partnering with that diverse business and saying, listen, we're going to help you to grow over the next 5 years. We know you can deliver this, and what Lena was talking about today about capability. We know you've got the skills, we know you've got the capability. We're going to partner with you, and we're going to help you scale. So here's the small piece of pie, and then you're going to get a slightly bigger chunk of pie, and then eventually a quarter of pie, and then you can have your own pie, and as it grows, the business can scale. And the beauty about diverse businesses is they tend to recruit from the same backgrounds. So as corporates, you're getting a double win in terms of your impact at the back end. You're supporting a diverse business and helping them to grow, putting more revenue through them. But as they grow, the likelihood is that they recruit from that diverse background as well. So you're getting a second benefit of giving jobs to that diverse background. So it's really win-win.
And let's not forget about the value, the real value that the small businesses in general and the diverse in particular bring to these corporates. Every day we need more innovative companies. The big corporations need to adjust and have agile suppliers that can make a difference. So it's not just like, of course, an impact in society, but also the value that these companies bring in terms of entrepreneurship mindset. And that is huge. So it's a real value that these small businesses bring to the table.
Absolutely, couldn't agree more. So I'll keep it with you then, Valeria. So how can organisations ensure that supply diversity programs aren't just tokenism? So they're not just having a KPI just to have a policy in place. And how can they give more opportunity to diverse businesses that's meaningful, essentially?
Yeah, I always think, maybe this is a crazy idea, but I always think that whenever they have a need, and I don't know how long it takes like to develop these needs within the corporations, like to make sure that you invite all of these groups like to have like an innovation challenge. So you put that to the table, maybe through organizations such as the council, so that we really get the best option, right? You as corporation get the best product service you need, and opening it up inclusively to the groups that we are here and those who are not here. So basically it's not a question of giving one or the other a possibility, but giving all, and maybe having that audited, like in every RFP we have one representative for each of the groups we are here. But I think this is a way to include all the groups and not just one over the other.
Definitely. What about yourself, Matt? What do you think about that tokens and a meaningful opportunity?
So there's three components. First thing, from what we've realized, especially dealing in the procurement space, supplier diversity, your DEI components have to match your supplier diversity. I don't know how many times I've spoken to DEI directors and they have no clue what supplier diversity is, and yet their company has a supplier diversity program. And I'm kind of scratching my head going, I don't understand why there's no connection here. So it's internal but not external. Makes no sense whatsoever. So if you have a supplier diversity program or starting one, please collaborate and coordinate it with your DEI processes, because it doesn't make any sense to have it far removed and then yet no one in the company even knows what this is about. So that's the primary focus. The other one, we need to really focus in on case studies and celebrate the successes that your diverse suppliers go through. I don't hear those stories. I honestly have never heard of a diverse-owned business celebrating that they won an award with someone else, with a major corporation. I don't know if it's because we don't talk about it, we don't want to disclose it, but that is something to be celebrated. You need to highlight that because other businesses might take notice, and this is where I think word of mouth starts to happen with other businesses going, how do I get in on this? Finally, tracking data. One thing is, I know it's a minefield of data, but when someone says, I've got to spend with £1 billion globally with diverse suppliers, you're kind of scratching, okay, well, where did you spend it? Did you spend it in the US? Did you spend it in the UK? Did you spend it in Europe? No data exists in terms of where are we spending with these diverse suppliers. This program won't make any sense if 95% of the spend comes from North America and 5% comes from the rest of the world. This whole program won't make any difference or won't make any impact. So the question is how do you prove some equality in terms of where those contracts are being distributed among the entire global population.
Yeah, and actually to build on that as well, given the topic of this panel is inclusivity, not exclusivity, is to have a look at that as well and to say, you know, it does make more sense if you want to encourage diversity is to be diverse as well. So don't give all your money to one diverse company, because then it's limited what the rest of the social benefits. So you might make one ethnic minority / LGBT / woman very rich. That's not the point. The point is to try and get economic equality and equity out there. So that's I think really important, and understanding that, being able to pass on from one advocacy group to another and say, well, we don't have any, we've heard about this opportunity, you know, and that kind of thing. So,
And also, I think the celebration should be two-way as well. So any diverse supplier, shout about it. Let your other diverse suppliers, let the community know that there's opportunities. You know, it's got to be collaboration in that space as well. So shout about those opportunities. Corporates should absolutely shout about them, but in the whole community, that should be celebrated and shouted about as well.
Absolutely, and that's a conversation again we've had today about how we can help ourselves and encouraging more from the communities that we're all representing to get involved with the advocacy groups because of the opportunity that's on the far end.
Yeah.
Okay, so I want to throw a question out quickly to the audience then, around the same kind of lines that we're looking at. So in terms of the corporates that are out there, the corporate buyers, management leaders, decision makers that are here in the room today. So what does it mean to you guys for a diverse business? What does your organization say a diverse business has to be? So think about in terms of ownership, think about certification or self-certification. What does it mean to you guys? Who's going to pitch in first? Go on, Jay.
Well, it's a very interesting question because that definition is very important for us. Thank you. So that definition has evolved for us because I think when we were very early on in the journey, and as we discussed at the beginning, we tried to kind of transplant the US definition into the UK, and you know,
Not directly.
it isn't, because there's a rich history of how the US developed and evolved their program, and they've got lots of legislation and behind it. So we started with that definition, and then we realized actually what we're doing is limiting ourselves with rules which don't apply here. So why do we want to do that, right? So expand the definition or increase the inclusivity by widening the definition or removing some of those barriers. So removing the need just to be certified so it can be self-certified, right? The percentage of ownership, right? We might move and wiggle on that if the business is being driven and controlled by that diverse business. If their purpose is still in line with the values of driving diversity, why would we ignore that? So for me, the definition, expanded it so we can be more inclusive.
Definitely, yeah. You can limit yourself by just adopting the one-size-fits-all rule, can't you? Anybody else want to weigh in?
I'm not from the corporate, I'm possibly one of the only public sector people in the room, but we do buy a lot. So I'm from the Greater London Authority, and we've waited very much on this journey, and I think London are doing more than the rest of the UK. You talk about Cabinet Office is talking about supply diversity, others are. The focus has always been on SMEs. Government have had that target around for years, 33% spent, and they're doing great stuff on it, but no one is really picking up on the diverse piece until, thankfully, SE UK and a number of others, and MSD UK, we connect, and we very much followed that international approach, probably similar to a number of others in the room, but yeah, we expanded it out. We talked about, started off 51% majority, then we talked about ownership, leadership, and we talked about ethnic minorities, and then breaking that down. And we worked with our EDI teams, not only across the GLA, but actually local authorities that have a high proportion of ethnic minorities, to say how do you capture this about the people. You know, you are the experts, let's find out. We don't want to exclude anyone. And it can be a long list, but we base it on self-certifying. If you see yourself, and if you are, see yourself as a diverse owned business because you are LGBTQ, disabled person owned, managed led, women owned, etc., ethnic minority, then yeah, that's what you need to highlight to us, and then we can start capturing that. And we've been doing that. It's with our suppliers, so it's not actually expanding it. We are on that baseline journey, and we are increasing our kind of outreach through all these amazing advocacy networks and other groups that are out there. And I think something else that we have started to do and has worked really well on a fantastic GLA framework, which is the Architecture and Urbanism Framework. You may have heard of it. It's off the back of the issues with the Southwark Council. The GLA wanted to do something very different. If you are designing buildings and plans for Londoners, you need to have a representative business. Now, architecture and urbanism isn't diverse, but there are a huge amount of micros. So what they started to do as part of building up this new framework, which has gone live, was actually tracking it at every stage of expressions of interest. Okay, we're going to collect this diversity data, and this is why we're collecting it. It's not going to give you a step in the door, it's because we are really committed to this and we want to know what the barriers are. It is a huge process of diversity action plan about removing those barriers, and then every step of the way of the procurement process, they track the number of and those characteristics to make sure that there wasn't a significant drop-off, because what we found before is that you can do all the work, when it comes to actually getting that procurement pitch in, especially on a framework which costs us £18,000 just to get on there, just to get the work, just to get the bid. We are obviously putting off micros and diverse owned businesses at every step of the way. So by tracking that, they've actually made sure that there's 60% ethnic minority representation. They've held lots for micros on there. They've done a huge amount of work, but they're tracking it through. Now that's gone live, they're also going to track on the call-off side. So apologies going into the procurement, really dry stuff. I'm not a procurement lead myself, but I'm fascinated by they are making sure that actually you continue to win work once you're on that framework, and that's something that's really key. So sorry, just blathered on about a load of stuff we're doing, but public sector is there. We really want to do more and more, and we love what corporates are doing, because you are our suppliers as well, so we can say, yeah, we want to know more about supply diversity plans. Why aren't you doing it? We know the corporate world's all over this, so do more, because it's our supply chain too.
Spent through the different tiers.
Absolutely, and also capture that, so now we go out to all our tier ones and say how much you're spending with SMEs. The next step will be diversity.
Yeah, perfect. There's a really valid point in what you spoke about at the start there. So in terms of supply diversity programs, it's a continuous journey, isn't it? It's a continuous improvement mechanism. And whether you're day one, week one, like Wayne from Selfridges has just started kind of 9 months ago and setting the program up within the business, or whether you're a corporate with a really well-established program, every day is a school day, and everything changes as you're evolving and moving through. And it highlights how manual the process should be in this day and age. As a country as a whole, we're not mature enough to have an automated process. In any instance, I would think. Somebody has to have a conversation with somebody and say, tell me about your business, where do you fit? You know, to Jay's example, they couldn't just uplift a policy from the US and say, let's implement that. You know, and an example Kate brought up on our call last week before this this event. In the example, so there's a white veteran who's disabled, 50% owner of the business, and a female LGBTQ ethnic minority who's the other 50% of the business. Where do they fit in a policy that says it has to be 51% owned? That business is completely excluded because they don't fit in a particular box. The reality of that business, it's 100% diverse owned, through multiple boxes being ticked. So that should be a better fit than anybody else. But if you've got a process-driven system, as lots of corporates do, for all the right reasons, that you have to have controls in place, you can actually exclude that business, those two individuals, from your system because of those reasons. So,
and actually, sorry, you bring up a really fantastic point. The architecture and urbanism framework calls us to change it to 50%. we want to capture if it's 50%, that is a massive win. So sorry.
No, I think that's a perfect example to give how you changed your policy
By 1%.
because of that reality.
Can I also add to that? So we took our certification from North America, but it's a little bit difficult because a lot of the corporates who first initially approached us around having LGBTQ certification needed to meet the guidelines for reporting in North America. This is where the complications start to come in. Where are you reporting this data and where are the requirements? For a lot of global corporates who are reporting that within North America or within the US, you have to be very stringent about those reporting metrics. What I love about being in the UK and in Europe is we can change and alter that dynamic. What we need is the push of the government to spearhead that initiative, because we can. And what we've noticed with so many businesses, it is a 50-50 split. And realistically, what companies also need to realize is the bigger the contract a small business gets, the more investment they need. They will dilute their shares to get income, and they will need money. This doesn't just come out of thin air. There are no angel investors throwing millions at you saying, great, you've got this contract, here you go, grow. No, they will dilute their shares, and we deal a lot with this, where the majority is still diverse owned, but it's only 31%. And there's so many stakeholders to that business that now they're not applicable for that diverse category. So what's amazing is we do have the opportunity to change that, but we need the government in here to literally sit down with us and say, listen, what makes sense for the small business community down the line?
And this is where as the UK, or you discuss the,
It's okay, yeah,
I was going to say,
yeah.
that's why that's really welcome for you to sit down together.
Yeah.
I'm not saying that it will necessarily make it, suddenly corporates will take on more diverse suppliers, but it will become a sort of an artificial barrier that no one intended. Nobody here intends to end up excluding a company that's 100% diverse owned.
Absolutely, and I think, sorry Scott, we've taken up far too much
No.
time, but it's really important, and I think just to wrap up and just to take on some of the points across the panel, is that it is an opportunity of where we are. The maturity of supplier diversity within the UK, I think it's within our gift right now to create that definition of what supplier diversity means to us. Our demographics are different, our accessibility to diverse suppliers is different to where supplier diversity was born. And I know that a lot of organisations and corporates will be accountable to their parent-owned US organisations. However, if it was a reporting, but just in the UK, it could use our definition. And just to wrap up, and I'm not going to quote it right now, you can look on the website, but Council for Supplier Diversity UK does offer a definition and something that we have brought up with the government.
Yeah, perfect. I think we just got 5 minutes left, and this is what I kind of hope for the panel, is that conversation to develop and bounce from one person to the next. So I think just to kind of wrap up and of the last little bit of engagement, we spoke today about collaboration being important. We spoke today about impact being important. And I think that's kind of one of the main takeaways for myself today is, what's the impact going to be? There's lots of people in this room that've got the power, the ability, the drive, the enthusiasm to make a difference. What none of us want to see is 12 months' time when we come back for next year's conference, nothing's changed in between. As Farida, her panel talked about, what's happening? Why is it only moved a fraction? So who in this room is going to do something tomorrow, next week, next month, and over the months coming? How are you going to engage with other corporates around how can you work together, collaborating over multiple corporates? How are you going to engage with the advocacy groups, with all the different groups that are in this room, and some that aren't in this group, like disability that we spoke about today? How are you going to get the decision makers to be involved internally if you're not the decision maker? Who are you going to speak to tomorrow? So those are the kind of questions that I'm posing to you in a rhetorical fashion, otherwise we'll be here for another 45 minutes with all the replies coming back. But it's about the impact. What changes tomorrow after this event today? And it's been a great day. I've thoroughly enjoyed it. I suppose it's a great time to thank Sunita and Kerry, Sarah, Abby, and all the others that names I'll forget for their organisation of it today and putting this on. But how are we all going to make it? The onus is on us. The people in the room today, it's down to us. And somebody brought it up earlier. There's lots of problems and challenges within this field, supplier diversity. But the solutions are in this room. So how are we going to make that change? Who's going to connect with who? Who's going to be setting up calls? I've had 3 connections today, you know, and there's a room of probably 100 odd of us from today. So, you know, before we all leave today, please come and see me. I've got a little QR code on my phone. We can connect on LinkedIn. We can set up a call and have a conversation. I want to be talking to you. Matt wants to be talking to you. Valeria wants to be talking to you. Jean wants to be talking to you. We all want to be having those conversations. As James rightly brought up earlier when he was talking, it's those conversations that start the ball rolling. And having those conversations and those sparks of ideas turning into something tangible and moving it forward. Execution is what will change the situation for all the people we represent. And we can't just leave it at a great day today and just let it go past us. So I want to see everybody connecting, getting on LinkedIn, getting in each other's diaries and having those conversations. And I want to see Camilla's soap. It's somebody in this room within by the end of the summer. I want Camilla to say a story. Yeah, I'm now in these corporates because of that thing. That's the power that the people have got in this room today.
Can I add something? I'm sorry, I don't want to steal your thunder at the end of this. I'll try and make this very brief. I heard something recently that I just thought was just great because it was turning on its head. There was a woman being interviewed, a lesbian woman with neurodivergent conditions, and she was being interviewed by a white, straight Christian man. And he said to her, well, I must be your worst nightmare in this conversation. And she turned to him and said, no, you're just a scenario. You're just a scenario. There's nothing special or not special about you. There's nothing special about you being LGBT, you being Asian, you being anything. We're all different. The problem isn't you. The problem isn't who you are or the fact that you're a white, straight Christian man. The problem is that the world has made you the model for everything, and everyone else, most of whom are not straight, white Christian men, asking us all to try and fit into that. So my sort of challenge when I heard it was, okay, so how can I change the model of what we're doing in our work so that that isn't the case? What are all the little barriers in there that make that not the case?
So I've got about 30 seconds to finish up. We're on 16:39, so I just want to recap with the advocacy groups, just so everyone's aware of who they are out there. So Out Britain, MSD UK, Jean is, stick your hand up, Jean. There you go, there's Jean over there, so if anybody hasn't spoken to Jean yet. Valeria here, We Connect, and myself, Veteran Owned UK. Come and speak to us when we're sitting up there now having a drink before everyone goes and gets on their trains, planes, automobiles, whatever it's going to be. And let's start those conversations off and let's keep that ball rolling. Thanks very much.